Law enforcement and government agencies struggle with parking citations, often because no one will pay them. Boots or other devices are costly, and they invite confrontation when implied and later removed by enforcing employees. With Tire Tag, you can avoid many hurdles and ultimately promote public safety and revenue collection. To learn more, visit tiretag.com. For a thorough conversation on how Tire Tag can help your agency and revenue collection, visit episode 204. That's 204. From interviews to jail calls, Ditto Transcripts delivers fast, confidential, and court ready transcription for law enforcement agencies. Ditto is CJIS compliant and is already working with agencies all over the U.S., including the Washington State Patrol and the National Park Service Investigations Unit. Get started now at dittotranscripts.com. That's dittotranscripts.com. To hear details about all the applications of Ditto Transcripts and exactly why this is a key solution for your organization's workload issues, check out episode 232. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests of this show do not represent their employing agency, department, or organization. All information should be regarded as anecdotal, contextual, and educational, and should not be misinterpreted as legal or medical advice. Welcome to Blue Grit Radio, the podcast that explores making better cops for a better community. I'm your host, Eric Tung. I've been an active police officer since 2007. We will dive into the aspects of police culture, health and wellness, leadership, and mindset. You'll hear from experts not only from policing, but all industries as they relate to being our best with purpose, passion, and positivity. Join me as we share stories, lessons, and advice so we can all be better for ourselves, our teams, our families, and our communities. This is part 2 of a 2-part interview. If you didn't listen to part 1, make sure to go back an episode or so you don't miss any of the good stuff. All right, here we go. Sweet. All right, the next stage is kind of like the rookie. So I guess we could go anywhere from, you're in academy, you're in field training kind of thing, or maybe you're just like, you're the newly solo officer kind of 1 year-ish. So what do you got for that?
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot actually, and here's my guilty self-promotion
Yeah.
because I think I've thought about like, okay, the best time to complete my program, Apogee Responders, when you go through the academy and then you go through field training, you've been in training for like for us, it's around 9 months total. When you're finally out on your own and you have this different perspective now, because you have and I teach this in my like basic peer support class, and I tell the recruits while they're in the academy. This is like week 1 of the academy when they have me teach the class too. And I super simplify it because it's what I needed it to be super simple. Was like you have a smiley face, right? And it's looking at a circle. So that's the perspective that they have in the academy. Once they get cut loose, now it's an angry face and they're looking at a rectangle. So they have this different perspective on society, on how they're supposed to carry themselves as a person
Mm-hmm.
because they have this new identity, right? So what they have to get to is actually combining them to be a reasonable person looking at what it actually is, all of reality, which is a cylinder. They're not looking
Mm.
at a circle. They're not looking at a rectangle. They're looking at a cylinder. So when
Yeah.
you're looking at society, you're not just looking at one side of it. You have to have that perspective. And for me, you've gone through this training to help you deal with that side of society appropriately. So now we kind of have to release the slack a little and learn, okay, how do I deal with this new identity? How do I set up my career for success? And that's what I dive into in my program because there's so many different areas that we have to look into. You have to look at your finances, you have to look at your marriage, you have to look at your presence because we are present every day for the community on calls, but how do we give that same amount of presence to our family or to yourself? I mean, even so, there's so many areas to look at. So I think in the years of kind of like 1 to 3, I would say you have to realize that you still matter. Like you've been taught that it's the community that matters, which is great for the job. That's what we're there
Mm-hmm.
for. Like you signed up for that sacrifice, but we have to understand that for the rest of your career, you don't have to settle for that sacrifice. The job's going to tell you like, hey, here's overtime, here's part time. Like, well, you don't have to spend every waking moment on the job either. So how are you going to set up your career for success? Like maybe have a side hustle that also helps people so that you don't have to give 100%, 110% of your life to the job. Because I guarantee you, every single department you work for is going to take it if you give it.
Mhm.
And I hate to say it, but in all reality, department is going to look after the department.
It has to.
It has to,
Yeah.
just like any
Mhm.
brand does. And they're going to look out for the department. So if you're not within policy and it's a an offense that you could be terminated for, like that's probably what's going to happen. So and in today's day and age, like everything is scrutinized so much. So how do you set up your career for success so that you're making the right decisions on duty and off duty and making sure that you're prepared no matter what happens. You're prepared for retirement if that's your goal. You're prepared for um, an injury separating you, an involuntary separation,
Mhm.
or I mean, God forbid you make a mistake, whether you're good intentioned or not. So, and that you've been long enough to see it happen. I know I see it happen every year. Like there's something going on and someone makes a mistake and they lose their job. So, how are you going to set up your career so you can get through the rest of it? Or if you have an exit plan or whatever that is. I mean, I know I kind of threw a lot out there just now, but
Yeah. No, you're
at the end of
good.
the day, like you have to remember that you matter and you have to look after yourself.
Yeah. A few key things I heard is like, I mean, it's self awareness. So it's almost like, and we were talking about this before the recording, right? Like, I do this lead yourself training and, starting with you. And yes, we do want to take care of the community. But in order to do that, you have to take care of you. Yes, I do want to show up for my beat partners. I do want to show up for my buddies, my battle buddies. You're going to be zero good. Like, you've been on a tag team. You've been on like the degree of trust and ability has to be so high. You got to be operational, right? You got to take care of your fitness. You got to dial in your mind, or you're going to be not only not very useful, you're actually going to be counterproductive. You're going to be a liability. So I yeah, I like the aspect of thinking deeply. Like, you gave the image of the literal perspective of like a circle. So you're looking at like the top of a cylinder. If it's like a like a tumbler sitting there or a can sitting on your counter, circle. Oh, side, it's rectangle. But like really, when you just go a little bit off kilter, it's a three-dimensional thing. And I think that's a great metaphor for looking at life. Like, you cannot you cannot be effective if you look at policing like it's laws and policies in black and white, right? That's not how the world works. And something you're saying was making me think about, Sir Robert Peel, like these Peelian principles, and basically barely mentioned to my recollection when I was in academy, and I've thought about doing this like this special, like this little series on here or like a blog about what they are. But one of them is really like just like police are of the community, right? Because we are people that live in these communities or near these communities. We are human beings trying to take care of human beings. And the moment you get away from that, you're not succeeding in your job, right? If everyone's an offender or, a fill in the blank curse word, which working graves years and years ago, early in my career, that's how we talked. That's how me and my crew talked, was like everyone out right now is an a-hole, right? Or like a S bag. And you see where this starts, and it's not to throw shade at people that get cynical, but it is to call out and call up like this energy where sometimes it becomes an over investment in the hypervigilance because a degree of it is necessary to be safe and survive, but then too much makes me distort my worldview to something that's not actually true. So I love what you put out, man. Just to kind of add this other layer on it, what I came up with was two things for that phase, right? Like, I kind of wrote it like rookie, and then 1 to 3 years because you mentioned that phase. The first one was to be a sponge, and I think a lot of what you said fits in right with that, right? It's to be highly aware and take in all this information. You even gave the example of a side passion or kind of side hustle, this pursuit that makes you not just look at the world through the vein of policing, because you also look at the world through the vein of being a woodworker and a craftsman, or whatever, or a volunteer coach. Like that will be good for your soul. I promise you. Um,
100%, yes.
yeah. And the next phase or phrase and phase was to be a shark. And what I meant by that was like keep moving. Like if you sit in one place, like, a shark has to keep swimming or it's going to die. And that doesn't mean like always grind, but that is to say like do different things specific to the job. What I mean by that is like this is a foundational part where you're learning how to do policing a certain way. And so if something like your field training officer or your the senior officer on your squad is not modeling policing the way that you were dreaming about, not doing it in this positive, um, this positive energy where it's about helping people and being constructive. If it feels like it's burning you out and the toxicity is rubbing off, like do what you can to put those literal barriers or emotional barriers, whether it's a different shift assignment, if you can swing it, or it's just to say, you know what, like it's business with this person. I'm going to try to be as positive as I can be. Maybe some of that will rub off on him or her. But at the same time, like by continuing to move, what I mean is like don't get cemented in one way because if you start off on the wrong foot, it's going to be really hard to pivot because early on we know like habits can be really calcifying, and so that's kind of what I came up with on that end.
No, that's really good, definitely, and I think for me, like, when you're in the academy or just graduating, like, recognizing that you matter is would kinda, like, be my phrase, and, like, that 1 to 3-year range too, I know how I operated during that time was, "Hey, I still feel like I don't know much
Hmm.
after all that training," like, but what I actually needed was that awareness that we talked about, like, I needed to apply it. So, I put myself out there, and I was very proactive because I realized that, hey, I didn't have that, comfortability or confidence that I see in so many other more senior officers. I needed to gain that, and the only way I could gain that was to get out there and talk to people, and do tons
Yeah.
of traffic stops, and so that growth in that 1 to 3-year time frame was like just, "Hey, let me make sure I'm a good, well-rounded officer and actually become comfortable at each thing that I'm required to do." Um, Good enough to be comfortable in, so, uh, that was like a primary goal for me then, and yeah, I think it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. And so even to harken back, because I hear it in myself, confidence was something I really had to work on, especially early on. And at every new stage, like new assignment, you're like, oh, imposter syndrome. What am I doing as a
Exactly.
new sergeant, young sergeant, whatever? Um, I think because I've thought about this a lot and people ask me a lot, especially younger candidates, because I came in at 21 and was figuring it out. I thought about confidence a lot, and I was actually looking, no joke, this morning at this article I wrote in Police One, part of the Ask Tongue series. But one of them was like, as a newer officer, how do I build confidence? And you said a couple things which were like, literally like get the reps in, right? And so just like do those traffic stops. You will get better and you'll figure out when something doesn't go textbook because it never does. You're like, "Oh, I goofed that one up. Didn't love how I felt when I was standing there. I felt pretty exposed, whatever." That's how you learn, right? So competence breeds confidence.
It's the whole fail forward mentality, like,
Mhm.
you really can't ever be ready to go do this job. You have to go do
Yeah.
it, and
Yeah.
by doing it, you will become ready, and you're gonna make those mistakes, but that's what I mean, you go down the rabbit hole of the education system
Mhm.
on how it doesn't help you make mistakes because you're test taking to pass. That's all you're
Yeah.
doing. But when you make those mistakes like on the job, like that's like, okay, well now I know what not to do. And you just grew as a person, as a police officer. So that fail forward mentality is huge. And it's also we like to say in Apogees, it's not ready, aim, fire. It's fire, aim, ready.
Mhm.
So you are just straight firing. Like when you get out there, you've had enough training. Like get out there, do the traffic stops, get talking to people, make contacts in your community, and that's only going to help you grow to that point where hey, then you'll be ready, then you'll be confident, and then you'll be a well-rounded officer.
Yeah, and I know everyone loves a new recruit that's really humble, but humble can be too much of like, oh, I don't know anything, I don't know crap, right? So I like what you said, which is, as a new person, recognize there's so much you don't know, so keep learning. But that's literally that's you and me today. So for the 1 to 3 year officer, Eric and David right here today, we're like, yeah, there's a ton I don't know, which is why we're on this journey called life, and we're going to continue learning and be this perpetual learner. Those are the best leaders. Those are the best operators or executors, whatever you want to call it. And what I will add to that is, yes, there's a lot I don't know, but there's a lot I do know, right? So if you're out of academy, you're like, block one, phase one, tell yourself, yep, there's a lot I don't know. That's why I'm here, but I know enough. I know a lot and I know enough, and keep on that track, and that'll serve you well.
That's kind of how I felt being released from FTO because always had somebody like over my shoulder watching me and I could
Hmm.
lean on them, and then answering a call for the first time, by myself, that's when I was like, oh, you know what? I actually do know some of this.
Yeah.
And you get that confidence like, hey, I actually I have learned a lot and I can apply it. Like I don't have to lean on somebody because I've been trained.
Are you looking for help with your rest and recovery, wanting to optimize your sleep and prime performance? Well, New Calm is built on neuroscience, and it's been used by special operators, SportTAC, pro sports teams, and many, many more for years. To learn more and access the best deals of the year, go to newcalm.co/grit. That's Newcalm, NUCALM.co/grit. Sometimes the hardest mission is when you have to adapt to a new role. From starting a first responder career to a new assignment to retirement, Greg Fernia is here to help. Greg is a retired special operations supervisor and a personal and professional development coach. He helps first responders and their families navigate transitions and challenges with purpose and clarity. Learn more at livingthegoodlifecoach.com. That's livingthegoodlifecoach.com. Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna power through, and maybe this came out in different sections. I'm gonna kind of hybridize it in the interest of time, but let's go like the 5 to 10 year mark, right? So, it's 5 years. A lot of people say that's enough time to get dangerous, categorical. Sometimes, regardless of your agency, usually they're like, yeah, I kind of seen every type of thing. At 5 years and 10 years it's a decade, right? So you've gotten your footing. What do you say to those folks?
I was definitely going to bring that that up. It's funny you said that because I've told people this like if I could have a perfect world in the profession of policing, I would say uh, every single person should only ever be on the streets or serve at all for 5 to 10 years because the amount that you see during that time, like you've seen enough to change you. I mean, some people see it all in the first year, depending on where you work. But um, especially, I think that's safe to say, 5 to 8, 5 to 10 year time frame. You've seen it all, so we have to recognize, like, okay, let me dive back into who I was when I applied. How have I changed since then? Um, have I accomplished the goals that I want to accomplish? How how have I set myself up for success for the next 10 years too? So we're going to me, it's I mean, it's very similar, but you're going back to what is my strategy? Is it a career? Like, am I doing this for a career? Am I going to stay on the streets the whole time? Or am I going to go a promotional route? Or if you haven't, whatever your department does, if it's time to put in for detective, try something new. I know that when I hit 5 years on specifically, that's when I wanted to be an FTO. I felt comfortable enough that, hey, I wanted to pass this information on to the new guys. I wanted to um, develop my learning by teaching others, like we discussed. And then what that turned into was something I had to recognize was burnout. When I hit 8 years on, I had spent the last six at a certain precinct, which is where cops should be,
Mm,
in our city. And uh, after being an FTO in that precinct, staying late every day, taking all the hard calls, like
yeah.
I had to recognize in myself that I was burnt out. And I think many reach that point around that time frame, 5 to 10 years. Like you're going to reach a point where, hey, this may not be fun like it was when I first started. So we have to recognize that and then decide like, okay, do I need to make a change? For me, I had to go to a different precinct that was slower, different clientele, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
and then I also, I mean, I put in for some things, didn't get it. So I was like, well, I'll go take the sergeant's test. And it worked out for me to get promoted the next year. So it was enough of a change. Like it was refreshing to be to have literally a new job. It's not the same job as a police officer. Being a sergeant is a totally different job. So for me, that helped curb the effects of the burnout around that time frame. So I think you really have to pay attention during that time, just to pay attention to who you are, how you've changed, and the burnout that may be creeping up or is already
Mm-hmm.
there.
Yeah. I love how you describe that and appreciate you sharing that, right? So one, FTOs, like great FTOs, I see it. I see it like daily when I'm at work. When an FTO has a hard student or a difficult student, or even like not like a bad student, but just it's a new student, right? Like until like the gears start like going smoothly. Sometimes the really great solid students in block three, like they're having a lot of fun because like kind of having a partner, but yeah, like the early phase when, you're just really trying to teach them the basics, it's so overwhelming. You're looking out for your own officer safety, you're looking out for the trainees. You are taking the hardest calls. They're very complicated. You're trying to not just take them, but you're trying to teach someone how to manage all these
Yeah,
different threads. And so
probably the
recognizing
busiest
like,
time of my career.
yeah, I did a short stint as a field trainer before Canine opened up, and having a failing, quote unquote failing student that ultimately didn't make it with me or other trainers, like that was exhausting. I was so tanked every single day. One of the hardest things for sure. But it is to say, like, recognize that burnout. Like, we should never allow ourselves to get burnt out. I think that for the hard charging, the high performers, if you feel yourself getting warm, then that means you're very effective. You're working hard. You're working your butt off. But we don't want to be in the under the broiler, right, where we're getting crispy, because that's too much. Too much. It's not going to do anyone any good. And sometimes the crash outs, we've seen them. Sometimes we felt them in ourselves. They are really bad, and they are not good for anybody around at work or at home. So, um, I appreciate you sharing all that. The things I said for the 5 to 10 years are to stay curious, ask why not. Because you're kind of in this phase of you're in the grind, and you kind of gave an example of that, right? Like if you're in the routine of the busy precinct and all that, and you're feeling burned out, then ask like, does it have to be this way? Right? Stay curious. Like, no, there's this other slower paced thing, and I don't need to be like the cool kid that works with a cool crew and does all the cool things all the time, because I still got 20 years left. On a good day, like I would love to do 20 years. So let's turn down the volume a little bit and go to this different assignment. I love how you kind of explain in an ideal world, and this is not to shame or blame any of those road dogs that have done like 20, 30 years all in patrol. Like, good on you. But I do think you're onto something when it's for most people in a pretty busy type of agency, that's not commonly going to be a great model for how you look at the world and how you process things mentally, emotionally, physiologically. It's just a lot. I've seen a lot of quote unquote like great like officer level, line level people just go to investigations or a community unit electively for just a little bit, and then it's like they hit the refresh button. Like it
Yeah,
was such a different type of stress, and then they came back to work and patrol, and they were refreshed again because they're like, "Oh, I don't have a caseload. This is awesome. Like I start my day, I end my day." So just the change up and asking yourself, why not? Why not take that role? I think that's really healthy.
100%. You really have to pay attention to how it's affecting you. And if it's time to make a switch up, like be curious about what else is out there. I mean, there's so
Hmm.
much you can do. They've had guys join the dive team or SWAT, like they went out for that with 15 years on. Like, so there's always something that you can do to change things up. That's really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. All right. Well, how about 15 years? That's where you're at right now. We're talking about the mid career, and we'll bleed it into like, here's where we're at in kind of this quote unquote midpoint. If we do the full 30 ish for a lot of people out there. So, what are you thinking as a theme there? And then we can even build it into like through the end of the career. Like, what
Yeah.
is a goal for you?
I really think that when you hit that 15, 20 year on, you are thinking a lot about retirement, what comes next. And yes, that's the goal. But you really have to dive in deeper to say, what is my identity here as a police officer? You know, it's at this point, maybe the majority of your life, like more than half of your life, you may have spent
Yeah,
doing the job,
it's
especially if
tricky.
you're hitting 50 years old, um, like for my department here in Virginia, we have to be 50 um, to start accruing one of our benefits. So you have to do 25 years on essentially and be 50. So for me, that's 28 years. That's at that point will be longer than anything else I've done in my life, be the majority of my life, more than half my life. So uh, that has an effect. It is an identity that I think the job tells you that it is your purpose. So when you are at this point in your career, you have to start to recognize, like, okay, my purpose as David Smith is not as a police officer. It's going to end at some point. I mean, this is a good perspective, honestly, to have at any point in your career. But you really
Yes,
start to think
100%.
about it, you really consider it more. You're especially like specifically for me right now, I'm around more people of higher rank now than I've ever been in my career. And all of
Hmm.
them are really close to retirement. So it's like always every week in some sort of conversation.
Mm,
So you really have to think about, okay, who am I as a person on this job? And who am I going to be when it ends? But the real question is, who am I now? So if you find out who you are now, once the job is gone, you continue being that person. So I think the identity piece, like we really have to dive into that. And I mean, I was just trying to think of a phrase, and it's the same phrase as an applicant. Know your why.
yeah, man, and
Except
that's
it's more instead
I
of
was
the
gonna
job.
point that out. Yeah, we've
Yeah,
come full circle.
yeah,
'Cause life
exactly.
life is
Instead of
full
the
of
job, it's
circles and
know your
cycles.
why for yourself, not know your
Mhm,
why for the job. It's know your why for you.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's
Identity is huge, and for those listening, it probably will air. I mean, I don't know when this will air, but the original plan was to have David on a panel to talk about this identity, right? Work life balance and all the things that come with identity. So we will go deeper with the panel. And I won't say who, we'll keep it a secret because also things happen, schedule conflicts, and I don't know
it's going
exactly
to
who's
be
going to be on it.
awesome. We'll put it
It's going to
that
be
way.
awesome, but it'll be extremely likely after this within a few episodes or so. So probably within a couple weeks. So look out for that. However, yeah, we've come full circle. The advice is very similar to at the beginning. So it's know your why, revisit these things, know yourself deeper. A lot of what you said, man, I made notes similar. It was get serious about goals, plans, backups, right? So that is to say, like what happens after retirement, and that's extremely terrifying for people. I will admit, it's a bit scary for me too because I was doing this mental exercise, which is called like stripped, and it's you think about who are you without your job. Okay, we think about this, we talk about it on the show, but no, like really, like let's say like without that, people, some people live this, but like you don't go to work anymore and you don't see your friends as often because they're at work. You have your other friends, right? So okay, so it's not my job, so it's not my rank, it's not my role, it's not my awesome SWAT assignment or my school resource officer role. So I don't see those kids anymore. So I don't have that. Okay, remove your possessions. And some of us can think about that and not be uh super rocked by it, but okay, I know someone that like has lost their house. I know someone that's like lost their car, and that's like really devastating for a moment. But you're like, okay, it's stuff. But you're like, okay, like also like all of it. Like you didn't save the photos. Also, your photos on the cloud, those are gone. Okay, cool. I have my family, my friends. That's what's really important, right? Like we say that all the time. We have to remind ourselves to live that way. Okay, they're gone too. What the heck? Right now, I'm really jarred, and I was sitting there like thinking about this and feeling really sad. And I was like, well, like, I know people that have lost family members. I know people that have lost kids, and that's absolutely devastating. But it is an exercise to say, like, okay, continue on. Who are you without those roles, without being a dad, David, without being a husband? You're still a dude. So who is that at your core? And then you think about values and you think about like what makes me me without all these external things. And it was pretty jarring for me. So if you guys want to do some deep reflection, kind of find a quiet place and space. But I also think a lot of these really hard things are really helpful to focus on what's important, right? So if I get this little BS thing to worry about at work and I have to plug 2 hours into it, it's not that big a deal, right? I'll do it just like every other BS thing I did at every rank or role in my career, and it'll go on. There's a problem. I'll do my best to solve it or be part of a team to solve it, and life goes on, right? Like life goes on either way. So continue on to the thing, but to kind of reorient on what we're talking about, yeah, similarly, like just challenge your narratives and what's been done. Find ways to step up and lead with conviction, because that is, again, going back to values and your why that you said um, so, uh, I think so accurately. Like that stuff really matters when you're thinking about not the what you do, but the how you do it and the why you do it. So, um, I do think we're super aligned in our themes and what we want people to think about, and clearly what we're thinking about in this stage of the game.
Yeah, values. It's funny you brought that up because your whole everything you were saying, I was thinking about values, and then you mentioned it because in a leadership class that I teach, I have an exercise where I walk the class through, like, okay, we're we're defining our values, these different categories, right? But the kicker is we start crossing things off, and it ends up with only five left in this exercise. And every time I've done it, and I've done it a dozen times now, in each class, I have people share, like, hey, what are your top five? The job is not in their top five.
Nope. Mhm.
There's so many other things that everybody values. And when you can look at it through the perspective of as a supervisor, everybody under you, like there are things that they value more than this job. And that's what you have to seek out and learn because that's how you're going to lead them. How are you going to learn what's important to them? And then we have to look at it within ourselves. What do we value? Because it's most likely not going to be the job. The job may have been there initially, but when you dive into what's really important, like who you actually are, then the job is crossed off. So, and then I have them break it down further. Like, okay, if you can describe your top five in like one or two words. And for me, that was faith and family. So I know, hey, one day I may be around long enough, my family won't be here, but I'll always have my faith. So that was such a powerful exercise for me. Like I'm always trying to have people go through this exercise and get something out of it because it dives deep and you realize like, oh wow, an insane amount of perspective. Like I actually don't value the job as much as I thought I did. So that's huge. I think we're definitely in alignment on that.
Yes, 100%. Man, well, it's been a fantastic uh discussion and journey. I was like, it's kind of nostalgic, like whether we said explicit examples, which some we did, but others that just came up in my mind as you're talking and
Well, it
sharing
brought
and
me
I'm
back.
thinking about things. Yeah, so it really takes you back. So for whatever stage in the game you're in, or some of y'all are past our points in the career, and I know you're listening. I'm sure there's application for you and the retirees that listen in. Super cool too. So I appreciate this discussion. I have a lot to think about as I enter the rest of my day.
Yeah.
Which is pretty
I'm gonna be thinking about
fantastic.
my memories as a new cop now. It's all been
Yeah.
brought back to the surface.
Yeah.
That was
Re-cement
great.
the why and values. It's a piece of it's a piece of both of our trainings, which says a lot about our alignment there. Um well, David, thank you so much for your time. Please, anything you want to close with, and let people know where they can find you and reach out.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Eric. It's like we said at the beginning, like to get on here with someone you align with and to like we immediately to start bouncing stuff
Hmm.
off each other, like it's gonna be a good conversation. And it definitely was. And to have that, it kind of a different conversation too, that it definitely helped bring me back and dive into a new perspective. Even like, okay, where was I? How could I have done things better at these different points in your career and all that? So it's been fantastic, and I appreciate you having me. And I'm looking forward to that panel also.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
where to find me? I mean, I'm on most of the socials. ApogeeResponders.com is my program, but you can find me on Instagram. I'm probably most active there. DavidSmith.ar is the handle. So, and I'm open to anybody. Like, hey, I'm here for anybody. So if anyone wants to message me, reach out about anything they have going on, I'm just happy to talk and offer that value. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. Absolute pleasure. And that'll be it for now. Stay tuned for that panel, folks.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of Blue Grit Radio. As always, support this community by subscribing, giving us a 5-star review, and following, liking, and sharing posts on Blue Grit Wellness on Instagram. You can reach me there or email me at bluegritwellness@gmail.com. Be well and stay gritty.